I realize things like the Madden curse and the Super Bowl losers curse are just kind of things that we come up with because there's all these coincidences about so many of the cover athletes for the Madden games over the years. They beat the cover athlete and then immediately they come back and have either a really down year or they have an injury-riddled, injury-plagued, or injury-shortened season. Or they have one of the worst years of their career. And then we talk about Super Bowl losers curse, that the team that makes the Super Bowl and loses one year a lot of times struggles to make it back to the playoffs the next year. These are just, there are all types of things that lead into that. But I think in terms of the Super Bowl curse, curse, whatever. But there's something to it. And one of the things to it is just that it's incredibly hard to get to that level to begin with. Especially when you talk about how razor thin the margins could be in the National Football League. Like if you have one or two things go wrong, NFL stands for not for long that you're going to be in that contending space. You can take a quick drop and a quick drop pretty precipitously, pretty instantaneously. And you could just change so dramatically from one year to the next. Like when you look at the 49ers in 2019, that defense was playing at an elite level. Jimmy G was actually healthy all of the year. All of these things lined up so well for him to get to the Super Bowl, but you really wonder that if they'll ever get back to that level anywhere close to it with the current construction and leadership that they have. Like they didn't get it done in the Super Bowl. They collapsed in that fourth quarter, both defensively and then offensively. And it could be really hard to get back in that spot, especially with the way that you're constructed. And let's be clear, the 49ers were constructed in a way where it was about the defense first and playing top-flight elite defense and restricting what opponents could do and limiting the amount of points that they could score. And then hoping that your offense didn't screw it up too much, that you could run the ball well, that you minimized how much risk you had to take with Jimmy G, etc. That formula worked 20, 30 years ago in the league. It doesn't work so well anymore. And I'm not surprised to see that 1 year after making the Super Bowl that the 49ers didn't make it back. And a big reason for that, you could talk about injuries are a thing that happen. They're natural. You shouldn't really use that as an excuse. I get that. Other teams have to overcome injuries, but there are different injuries that mean more. There absolutely are. You look at them offensively. First, Jimmy Glass only made it through 6 games, which is pretty typical. 2019, him playing all the games was much more outlier and fluke than it was reality. What you saw out of him in 2020 was more of the reality. But you only got half of the season out of guys like George Kittle and basically Deebo Samuel and Raheem Mostert. These were key cogs, key contributors on that team that went to the Super Bowl and was a fourth quarter away from winning a world championship last year. And you had them for half of a season or less. And then you go to the defense where you had Jaquiski Tartt only play 7 games. You got 5 out of Quan Alexander and Richard Sherman. You got 2 games out of Nick Bosa, a guy that had such an impact on them as a rookie in 2019. 1 game for Dee Ford, another big acquisition that they had before the 2019 season. You look at these big notable names on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball, and you look defensively and you're saying, for an elite unit, they were missing a lot. And then the offense was missing people that were key and critical to their success the year before. It's no surprise that they finished out of the playoffs. It's no surprise that they lagged behind. It's no surprise that they experienced that Super Bowl loser's curse. What's incredible to me is the fact that their defense could still finish 5th in the league in total yards allowed in spite of all the injuries. That speaks to the talents and skills as a leader and a motivator and a game planner and play caller on the defensive side of the ball that Robert Saleh is. And that's why ultimately the Jets did so well to hire him to be their next head coach. But, the defense, again, can only help you but so much. You just had too many injuries in too many places on both sides of the ball, and especially offensively. Look, Jimmy Glass is not very good. Let's be clear. You can hide him, and you could put him in game manager situations, but when it comes to nut cutting time, he's just not that level of dude. And the quicker that the 49ers organization and the 49ers fans come to that reality, the better off they are. I can't imagine sitting there and being so stubborn and pointing out insignificant things like team wins as a quarterback stat and holding it up and say, when Jimmy G plays, they usually win. Yeah, but he never fucking plays. That's the problem. And even when he does, you saw the playoff run in 2019, They were able to hide him until they got to the Super Bowl, and through the first 3 quarters of the Super Bowl, they were largely able to hide him, and when it came time that you could no longer hide him, it all fell apart. A house of mirrors, if you will. Smoke and mirrors. Jimmy Glass. And now, you're talking about a 49ers team coming off of all of these injuries, missing the playoffs, a ton of free agents, losing their defensive coordinator. It's going to be rough this offseason potentially. And then you got to make the Jimmy G decision. He's got a $26 million cap hit. If you were to release him, he's only got $2.8 million in dead cap this year. You're a team that's kind of light in terms of the salary cap space. Now, me personally, when I look at this team, I would say, why in the hell would you be staking anything on bringing Jimmy G back next year? And I certainly wouldn't be doing it to the tune of a massive cap hit. What the hell has he done to deserve that? Right? If there's a team that should be going out there and have made a big offer for a Matthew Stafford, or making an offer for a Derek Carr, or making an offer for a Carson Wentz, or even a Sam Darnold, the team that should be making those types of calls is the 49ers as much as anybody. Because they could make the argument with better, more consistent, more reliable, more available, competent quarterback play that they're a team that could be right back in the mix next season. That could be potentially true. Because you still look to have several key pieces of your defense there. You still have Fred Warner. You're going to have, hopefully, Nick Bosa back from injury, Dee Ford back from injury. Quan Alexander maybe. You're going to get some of your biggest, key, most important cogs of your defense back in the fold. I'm surprised the 49ers haven't been rumored to be more active in the quarterback market. Can you really sit there and feel that confident or that great about Jimmy Glass being the dude? I don't even think about it from a level of play standpoint at this point, although you could argue, looking at the 2020 results of the 49ers, you say, how much of a drop-off was there truly really with a Mullins or a Beathard compared to a Jimmy G? Let's be real. But just the lack of ability, of availability, the guy is fucking Glass. It seems like he's always getting fucking hurt. How much can you really stake yourself to that? It's awful big risk. And like I said, it's a team with limited cap space. You really want to tie that much into a quarterback that's likely to not play half of a season, let alone a full one. And then you made a big trade for Trent Williams. Now you got to figure out whether you're going to retain him. You got Richard Sherman, Jaquiski Tartt, Kyle Juszczyk, Kendrick Bourne, Solomon Thomas, Jason Verrett, Ahkello Witherspoon. Some of these guys you could do without. But I'm just pointing out that there's a number of free agents here. So for a team, especially on the defensive side of the ball, that's been so strong the past couple of years, you could potentially look at that unit looking slightly different. And without the leader of that defensive unit that got them to play at such a high level the past couple of years. There's a potential that this could get bad in San Fran really, really quickly. When I look at this team in the offseason and I look at some of their team needs, to me, I've just mentioned it, number one's got to be quarterback. It absolutely has to be. And I'm just stunned that there hasn't been more. Now, it could be that they're targeting the draft, and they're targeting somebody like a Trey Lance or a Mac Jones or a Justin Fields, whether they be at the 12th pick or trading up a little bit to go get their guy. And if the 49ers do that, I would absolutely champion that for them. I would absolutely advocate that for them, because until they do that, they're not doing anything. You feel like you've got the right head coach in Kyle Shanahan, which you probably should at this point. It is time to remold and remake this team a little bit. You need to get better long-term quarterback play in San Francisco, period. It's another one of these teams that until they do that, they'll be trying to play an outdated style of football that will always eventually catch up with them. And then I look at that offensive line and I say, you know what? You need some investment there. You need some help at depth at tackle. You could certainly use some upgrades on the interior of that line. If you're going to go get a new quarterback, or even especially if you bring in Jimmy G, bring him back, his glass ass, you got to be able to protect him. You've got to be able to protect your quarterback. They need to get more spark, more spunk, more firepower out of that offense. So get the quarterback and then protect him. I think they could also potentially use a running back that they could more consistently rely upon. If they let Richard Sherman walk, maybe corner becomes a need in free agency or potentially the draft. But for the 49ers, I think it's very simple. Last year, the 2020 season was a bad luck, bad string of events. Injury after injury to key spot after key spot, key player after key player. There's only but so much you could do to overcome them. And I thought they did well, all things considering, to finish where they did. just obviously wasn't going to be good enough. It was just too much to overcome. But now, looking ahead to the future, like, you have to assume at some point in time there's going to be a reduction in play out of this defense, which means they must get more out of this offense. They will not get more out of this offense as long as Jimmy Glass is their quarterback, and it's that simple. If the 49ers go and they end up making a big move at quarterback, whether it's via the trade market, free agency, or the draft, this organization could be a lot more interesting in a hurry. But if they don't, they're much more likely to finish last the next couple of seasons in that division of the NFC West than they are in first.